James is going to be talking about Hunter Thompson's Hell's Angels while eating watermelon. As I sit beside him and just listen.
So I finished listening to Gonza, a documentary about Hunter S. Thompson, and then I watched it, and I'm hoping to watch it again. It's comes recommended. Don't buy it. Does anyone buy it?
Elvis, you're going to have to go in if you're like that.
Anyway, they call Hunter S. Thompson a national treasure. And I think he had some problems, big problems. He largely kept them to himself. You can't say that about everyone has problems. Hell's Angels haven't kept to themselves. So this book, I finished could be 3 times. Yeah. Finished up I went through a lot of it. A long time ago. I can tell from my underline, which is a little old-fashioned back then. But back then I didn't check the pages off as I was going through. Because I do that now, just to make sure. That way I don't have to use a bookmark. Bookmarks always tend to get lost. They don't. Anyway, this was published, I believe, 1966. It's published. That's in cloth paper. It looks like 1967. And this actually might date back to 1967. It's quite no, they don't. 27th printing. Oh no, days from 87. I should have known better. So it's just done on cheap paper and stuff like that. So yeah, in this book they have an interview with Sonny Barger or Barger. I suspect it's Germanic in origin, and so he was the head of the Oakland Hells Angels, kind of almost like the head, unofficial head of the Hells Angels in the United States. It looks like the Hells Angels started off in California, maybe San Bernardino, or Purdue, as it was known among some folks around there. I think that even made it into a song by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Of course, they come from the Oakland area themselves, a little north of Oakland, as I recall. What is the name? Cerrito or something like that, where they came from. And north of Berkeley, actually. They were definitely not Berkeley type of folks. And I think they actually had a few Creedence Clearwater Revival tunes in this Gonzo movie as a backup. And, Creedence Clearwater Revival is not really Hells Angel type of music, whatever the Hells Angels might have thought. I think they preferred the Doobie Brothers back in the 70s for some reason or another. And then a lot of them went for the Grateful Dead for some reason or another. Probably had preferred the Allman Brothers. The Allman Brothers had, I think, a couple of guys died in motorcycle accidents, at least one. One was taken out by a beach truck, presumably down in Georgia. And so their next album, they titled, ironically, Eat a Peach. So I guess that guy ate several peaches. Was that? Well, I think that was going home. But I think there was a guy called Barry Oakley. Was he the guy who died in the 70s as well, their bass player? Edwin Allman was their lead guitar player. Well, one of their lead guitar players. They had an awesome recording. Back in the day, Dickie Betts was the other guy. They were awesome group. But particularly the guitar players. They had 2 drummers, as I recall. And they actually stayed in tune. like Grateful Dead, or in time, the Grateful Dead for a while had two drummers, or drummer and percussionist. And man, they were rambling, just never seemed to be able to stay quite in the pocket. Kind of like the Grateful Dead stuff. So Hunter S. Thompson, as it was pointed out in the Gonzo thing, he was kind of doing straight journalism. I think it was pretty doped up, but straight journalism. It wasn't kind of like fake journalism he did in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And he did a pretty good job in Hell's Angels. He doesn't quite hit the note. He's saying they're not as dangerous as they were being portrayed, but they were dangerous. And he does point out the possibility that they might turn into something more dangerous. And when he's talking about that, he's talking about an angel giving dope to a kid, maybe selling it, I'm not sure. And you see, that's the Hells Angels have ended up, to a large extent, not replacing so much as supplementing the Mafia as gang dealers and dope and a variety of different things. And there was one leader in Quebec, Mums something or other. His nickname was Mums, M-O-M-S. Boucher was his last name. I don't know what his first name was, or he could hardly care about the name. But he was intending on taking over Quebec. And he was starting off by thinking about at least planning to whack a judge or something like that. I guess he had it in for the judge. And his intent was to take over all of Quebec. Well, does that sound melodramatic? No. You look at Putin, he's basically a gangster who's taken over a country. It just happens. In Italy, there was a guy, I didn't get a chance to celebrate his death. I like celebrating people's deaths, unless they deserve to have their death celebrated, but his name is Silvio Berlusconi, and he was something like a media mogul. Yeah, worse than Rupert Murdoch, way worse. And he ended up being a politician, was fake elected, I suspect, several times. Was of Italy, and
you can stay out, Angel. You can stay out. You weren't
owned, I think it was AC Milan, was the soccer team in Milan. Amazingly enough, very successful soccer team. And stuff like that. Mafia and gangs can take over the countries, and the less money they're allowed to have, the better. That's why Nixon introduced, and Reagan continued on, and it's still continuing, war on drugs. It's counterproductive. You should have known, they should have known, that wars on drugs, wars on prohibition doesn't work, and it dates back to prohibition. The prohibition was introduced in the United States roughly in 1920. We got rid of it till about 1933 under Roosevelt, I think. And but the heyday for Mafia and gangsterism in the United States was in the 1920s. It was because people were drinking, and they were getting it, their drink, somehow, and they were getting it illegally. And so the money for the drink was going into the coffers of the Mafia and other gangs. So I called it the heyday. It was a heyday because it's been awesome for different sorts of gangs since the Nixon introduced war on drugs, I think, in California. It was introduced by Nelson Rockefeller, otherwise a fairly good Republican, a politician, good, fairly innocuous, I should say, not necessarily good. That was in New York. He was governor of New York, mixing him up with Ronald Reagan for some reason or another. And So Hunter S. Thompson recognizes there was something wrong with the Hells Angels. I was mentioning Charlie Manson was kind of like a reductio ad absurdum in the 60s. So were the Hells Angels. You know, you had left-wingers going, hey, you know, like these guys are the enemies of the state. These guys are the enemies of the state. Chucky Manson, Hells Angels. And so there are friends. So is people like Ken Kesey in the San Francisco area. Younger Grateful Dead, they're hanging with the Hells Angels.
Dogs sure love watermelon.
And 4 years after Hunter S. Thompson was beaten up by the Hells Angels, for 4 years. I think he was hanging with them at 65. You know, the Rolling Stones are hiring the Hells Angels as security for a concert they say might have been attended by as many as 300,000. Yeah, 300, that's not 30,000, 300,000 people. Ultimate, which is kind of like east of the Bay Area, kind of near Livermore, I think. Somewhere around there. There's a pass there, I think it's called Ultimate. And so that's kind of southeast, or east-southeast of Oakland. It's in the Bay Area. They hired them for security. Now, they killed a guy, knifed him to death, who pulled a gun. And you know, the guy was black, African-American, Meredith Hunter. And when I was a kid, I thought, oh man, the Hells Angels, that was awful. You know, when you pull a gun in a crowd of 300,000 people, you've got to get taken down. Yeah, Hells Angels were, yeah, what do? I mean, you gotta take the guy down. Maybe they could have done it without killing him. But you see, what they were doing was before then, they were taking on people who were jostling up against their choppers and their hogs and all that sort of stuff, which had been drawn up next to the stage. That was a stupid formula. The Rolling Stones shouldn't have allowed that, because of course they were all too protective of their precious little toys, the Hells Angels were. And when people jostled their toys, then they'd start beating them with leaded pool cues. It got so bad when Marty Balin, or Balin, however you pronounce or mispronounce his name, one of the lead singers of Jefferson Airplane, protested. They apparently knocked him out, presumably with a leaded pool cue. It was a lot braver than Mick Jagger was when the Hells Angels wilded Meredith Hunter. Brothers and sisters, you know, like, wow, what a week. So this is what was happening, you know, like this identification with what lefties, hippies, whatever, combo, saw as their fellow outlaws, was happening seriously in the Bay Area. Now, Charlie Manson, and you know, they had their representatives, Hells Angels, and Gypsy Jokers, and Satan's Slaves, and a variety of different flunkies back then in Los Angeles, of course, in Southern California. And the family, Chuck's Manson family, Chuck spent a lot of, he was released, when he was released, he gravitated in 67, he gravitated right where the Flower Children were. So he went to the Bay Area, San Francisco. That's I think where he picked up his first recruit, a victim of a different sort. So what's her name, Brunner? Mary Brunner or something like that. Maybe that's where he picked her up. But he was trying to pick up folks from there. So he's back and forth between Los Angeles and the Bay Area, California. He made his greatest conquest, I think, in the Los Angeles area. And a lot of people didn't want to talk about it. I mean, this was put together by Ed Sanders, who was the leading light of a group called the Fugs. And not because it's a 3-letter word, well, 4-letter word, but it's F-U-G, The Naked and the Dead by Norman Mailer. So yeah, this was originally published copyrighted in 1971. So a couple of years after Chucky really started wilding. That was 69. And but there were lots of people who didn't want to talk with Ed Sanders, and it was more out of fear than embarrassment. So one guy he doesn't mention here is Neil Young. Neil Young is in the LA area back then, eventually gravitated to the Santa Cruz, I don't know if you call them mountains or stuff like that, the area, I think it's south of near La Honda, or La Honda, I don't know how they mispronounce it, south of Redwood City in the Bay Area. I used to wonder, what's Neil Young singing about when he sings in Heart of Gold? I've been to Hollywood, I've been to Redwood, and Hollywood is very close to where he's living. He was living in Laurel Canyon, which is, I think, north of Hollywood in the 60s, and then he moved up near Redwood City. It doesn't say Redwood City, but I think that's what he means by that. Anyway, La Honda figures in the Hells Angels story. But so south of Redwood City, near Silicon Valley, but a little bit west of it. Anyway, Chuckles was hanging with Neil Young sang a song about it, and that was pretty brave. It was 1974, a bit of a whack. It wasn't a terribly complimentary song. It was one of Neil Young's better songs. It hasn't got much play. And who else? It wasn't just Dennis Wilson, the drummer of the Beach Boys. When they were in concert, they'd be using the wrecking crew for recording purposes. But like Dennis Wilson's oldest brother, Brian Wilson, did a stint of recording Chucky Manson. Can you imagine wasting your talents when Brian Wilson's the guy who did the composition, the music at least, and the amazing production and all that sort of stuff. Some of the songs, he was singing all the parts. He must have been playing with the frequencies of the sound. He'd be singing all the parts. He's way better singer than the rest of them. And wasting your talent producing this putz. But so that's the Beach Boys. And then there's Terry Melcher, the son of Doris Day. Can you imagine the son of Doris Day? You've seen her, so wholesome, presumably Doris Day, hanging with this idiot, Terry Melcher. But Terry Melcher was, I don't know at this point in time whether he's producing one group that I admired, but he was the original producer for the Byrds, as I recall. And a guy that worked with him, Greg Jacobson, was hanging with the family, maybe more than Terry Melcher got afraid. So how much was he hanging with? Well, Terry Melcher lived in a place called Cielo Drive. I think it was 150 or 10, 500, something like Cielo Drive. Well, guess where Sharon Tate was living when she was whacked? That place. So Chucky would have been up there, and he would have known exactly what the place was like, maybe better than Sharon Tate did. And because I think they kind of just moved in, they were redecorating and so on and so forth, Roman Polanski and the Sharon Tate. So yeah, that was Terry Melcher was, I guess they were thinking that he was Charlie was trying to get even with Terry Melcher because Melcher kind of welched on getting him a record contract, but no, it looks as though they were wanting to take out some rich people. They weren't, apparently, like Chuck was mad because they got things wrong. He had some sort of source. It looks as though they weren't supposed to kill Sharon Tate. She was pregnant, all that sort of stuff. And the idiots that this guy sent, I mean, this guy's an idiot, but he sent Tex Watson and Susan Atkins and what was her name? Patricia Krenwinkel, and one other flunky. Well, one, Linda Kasabian turned state's evidence. But you can see this guy sure looks like a drooling fool, eh? Tex Watson. He's a very good athlete. I think this woman was there, and this woman was there. This woman was at the killing of, I think it was the next day, at the La Biancas, and stuff like that. But, you know, like, apparently Sharon Tate wasn't supposed to be there. You know, like she was off somewhere else. And she just kind of like turned up. Oh, she just turned up from England. She'd been in England with Roman Polanski. He's going to come a few days later. And I think Chuck was mad because they went ahead with the plan. You know, they should have just pulled the plug. You know, when they saw them. The other folks were. I mean, she was an heiress, Abigail Folger or Folger. How do you say that coffee stuff? Folgers? So she was kind of like an heiress of that. This Wojtek Frykowski was an idiot. He looks as though he's dealing drugs. And this guy was the hairstylist to the stars. You see how beautiful his hair was. He would have been one of the first guys in Hollywood to get that Beatles haircut, you know, down front, and so on and so forth. Jay Sebring. And this poor little fellow just was there, you know. Parent, Stephen Perrant was just there. So, you know, like Chuckles made sure the next killing at the La Biancas, he turned up and tied them up. He said, oh, it's going to be just fine, just fine. And then he had his angels of death come in and kill them. Well, slaughter them, really. So, yeah, and he was mad, you know, like, at these folks. He didn't give them instructions or anything like that. What an idiot. Anyway, talking about idiots, you know, like these folks in Hollywood, the general area of Los Angeles, who were hanging with Chuck, thinking that he was a great dude, you know, and stuff like that. Because initially he was going around preaching peace and love. This Mel Wyman said he was the head of the Wyman family located in the Boston area. A little bit later, he said the Manson family go around preaching peace and love and killing people. We don't go around preaching peace and love. How much time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Now
6.
we've got these idiots, hefty lefties going around saying, you know, like, here's one guy saying, oh, you know, like, we got no one to turn to. There's no one taking on the capitalists except the Muslims. Oh, made a mistake. Fundamentalist Muslims are no one's friends except themselves. And you think they're going to take on the capitalists? I had a Muslim, I liked the guy, but he was saying, capitalists can't last, can it? I saying, well, you can see they've kind of got capitalism in China. Capitalism is really robust. It's really resilient. What I was thinking was, you know, you as a Muslim don't like capitalism. He's from Jordan. He's a nice enough guy. But he didn't understand the word. I mean, he was simplifying capitalism for him. And I'm not a big fan. Oh, there's way worse things. But you know what? Democracy is not nearly as resilient or as robust as capitalism. I was sitting there thinking, man, oh man, you Muslims can try to get rid of capitalism. It's not going to work. You can get rid of democracy. And, you know, like Osama bin Laden did a great job of working towards that thing.
You have a little sample size thing of popcorn here.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's left over.
Would you like me to eat some?
You should eat them. Yeah, that's right. That way you'll get your share, because you gave me most of the stuff, right? Almost all of it. It's not really your share.
I'll eat them.
But there's did we advertise for that guy? We did.
I just haven't put it up yet.
There we go. So he's does a local product. I wouldn't mind seeing that guy go national, international. It's caramel and with real caramel in it, caramel popcorn. And the bag he gave us absolutely full. He gave it to me.
Hey, I'm eating more than half of it.
No, I meant like you gave me the whole bag, didn't you? Or did you eat your half of the bag?
There's still some in the bag.
Oh, there is. Yeah, that's right. No, we don't get the wrong impression. Like when we get something nice, we like to spread it out. So we got some tiramisu cake a while back, and the pieces we eat are about this thick. Right? We love it, but we don't like eating it all whole hog. So just a little friendly. It's almost like a warning to folks out there. Like I'm not threatening you folks, but you folks out there, you lefty hefty, who think that Islam's a tolerant religion, it's not. Wake up and smell my coffee. I was talking to the guy who taught me Islam, and I said, so left-wingers seem to think and he's a fundamentalist, but I don't think he's into violence. I was asking him, like left-wingers think they'll have allies in Muslims. Are Muslims going to ally with left-wingers? Absolutely not. Was the sense, okay? So he didn't get upset about it. It's just, matter of fact. It's kind of like a shrug. Absolutely not. You hear that, you stupid left-wingers? This guy was saying, he's a Sufi, and he was saying he could put up with Hinduism because they worshipped a god. He couldn't stand Buddhism because Buddhists he considered atheists. You hear that, you left-wing atheists? Fundamentalist Muslims cannot stand you. You're worse than Hindus, because Hindus at least worship a god.
This is what James was talking about.
Yeah.
And what I was eating. Made here in Lethbridge.
Crafted corn. So we're ending it on a positive note there.
Yeah. And there's still quite a lot in the bag because the bag it doesn't look very big, but he packs it right full.
Not me, the guy who markets it.
Makes it.
Joel is his name.
Yep.
Awesome guy.
And
very nice guy.
We told ourselves, well, we're only going to eat it when we go on big, long hiking trips, because we like to reward ourselves at the end of a trip.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really the way to do it. If you want to eat poorly, it's better to do the exercise first.
When you say poorly, you mean stuff that isn't high nutrition.
In nutrition, because this is certainly high in caramel, quality caramel. Very good.
It's a quality experience.
Yes. So good. It's the best caramel corn I've ever had in my life. It's very good.
Me too, by far.
By far.
I'm
and
chowing
I better
down.
stop now. I'm going to give you a handful though. Because I ate it. You want
Just
me to put
in.
it on the... There you
I want to bring the books in.
I'm still going to eat more.
And these kind of have stuff on the corn that might make my hands stick.